What's up guys, it's Iron1Pass here, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile on my Nectar Maiden build. So without any further ado, let's just get started with the starter. So the starter is Bud Maiden Ho, and I'm going to run 2 copies of it because its ability is really good. So she's a Forerunner, and also she has ability on Rearguard. So, it doesn't really focus very well, hey. So anyways, the ability is the Counterblast 1, puts unit into your soul. You can choose up to 4 of your other units, and then basically you choose one unit and you choose up to 4 copies of that unit, and then they all get plus 5,000 until the end of turn. So basically the combo with this is you get like a full field with all the units that are like basically the same name, which is possible because of this certain unit that's also really expensive called Maiden Flower Screen. And then you basically pump 20 to like everything, and it starts getting really stupid. And basically the winning image of Nectars is to get really big side columns by getting a lot of units with the same name. So this is why you also are eventually probably going to need to use one of your big friends, the dice. So yeah, you're going to need a lot of dice in this. I highly recommend picking up some D6s, D10s, because you're going to get a real headache to actually try to keep track of everything. But yeah, double starter, it's really good. Trust me, you want to run double starter for multiple reasons, which I will explain. But with the main grade 3 is Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha. So Asha's skill is mainly you play her for the auto. So her ability is to Counterblast 1. When your G unit strides, you can CV1, and then you choose one of your rearguards, search up to 1 copy of that, and then the superior call it to rearguard, and that copy gets plus 2,000. So you're starting to see why I actually need the dice, because you start getting plus 2s, plus 5s everywhere, and then you're going to start losing track if you're not careful. It's also a bit of a courtesy, well, not really courtesy to your opponent, just to let them know how big your numbers are going to be. So the reason why I run double starter is because this occurs during stride phase, and stride phase is before main phase. So typically, if you didn't manage to actually call on your rearguards, then you'll at least have 1 target to clone, unless you're really unlucky and then you draw your second copy. But yeah, Aisha is really good. Her Generation Break 2 is also pretty good. So if you have it gives all your units the ability that if you have another copy that has the same name on your Vanguard or Rearguard, then this unit gets plus 5,000. So you're going to have a lot of different units that will... You can have multiple units on the field that, like, as long as you have pairs of units, then everything will get plus 5,000 boost. So typically, you won't ever actually use the GBT-02 because you're going to be striding a lot, and striding is actually your main win condition. I'll explain the stride later. His name is Jingle Flower Dragon. If you played against me, you will know how to fear the trees. Yes, fear the trees, fear the flowers. Oh man, I love this deck so much. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of Vegetable Avatar Dragon. So Vegetable Avatar Dragons is a nice off-ride. Its first ability is the Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When this is placed on Vanguard, you can search your deck for a grade 2 or less, and then superior call it. So it's really good if your opponent is like trying to troll you with by grade stacking themselves, because you can just get a free unit without having to have Generation Break 1. So it's pretty good. Yeah, this looks really weird because it doesn't say like the ability activates on Vanguard, but regardless, so that basically it's almost the same as using Aisha's stride, except Aisha gives plus 2, of course. But this is nice because you don't have to actually stride to get the ability off. Its second ability is Generation Break 1. You can Counterblast 1 at the beginning of your main phase to search your deck for a copy of this card and then clone it, and basically call it to rearguard. So it's really nice if, like, for whatever reason you can't get your second stride off, then you can at least guarantee yourself another unit. It's a really good backup Vanguard, I feel. And yeah, I really like him a lot. Vegetable Avatar's your avatar. And then the reason why I don't run 4 copies is because I actually really like the Legion. So basically this is the only Legion you can actually really play with Nectars, because I don't really feel like Musketeers really blend well with Aisha. But that's just my own opinion. But speaking of Musketeers, it just happens that this is the Musketeer Legion. It's a 10k vanilla Legion. Main reason why is because you can only return non-trigger units to your deck. So if you actually want to recycle like triggers, then this guy's not bad. So this is also actually a 12k attacker on rearguard, so it's a nice backup attacker, and that also activates whenever. So if your opponent's grade stuck at 7k, you can just call this and then bam, 12k. But yeah, it legions with another 10k vanilla, so it makes a really nice number. It swings for 25,000. So that's a pretty big number actually. So it's not bad to swing with him either. It's just mainly that you want to have the legion to recycle units. So it's a very interesting tech choice because honestly it's a bit of like a split. It's a bit more toolbox this way, because if you're playing a matchup where the game gets really grindy, your opponent actually manages to like burn down your rear guards, and then you're getting close to decking out, you can just legion again, and then you'll be pretty set. The only real issue is that you can't actually soul blast legion pairs, so just have to be really careful. It's a nice tech, and the reason why you can actually do this is because your grade 1 can search the stride enabler can search Aisha out, so it's not a really big deal if you draw into him. Usually I don't ride into him first, but it happens sometimes, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. And I'll go over the Legion Mate first. The Legion Mate's just 10k. 10k body is nice. You should be cautious when you ride into him, because I only run 2 copies. Just for the Legion, really. But the 10k defensive base is nice if your opponent tries to rush you. This is also really strong to rush your opponent with, because they can't actually clear this if they're at grade 2 themselves, unless they put down a full column. But if they commit to a full column, then you're already kind of winning in that sense. And then I run 2 copies of Maiden of Gladiolus. So Gladiolus, I don't run 4 because I feel like 4 is very unnecessary. You actually get rear guards pretty easily. And honestly, you shouldn't be relying entirely on these skills to get free units. That's not the goal. The goal of these units is because you need to call units first before you can actually clone anything. So with that kind of idea, I feel this is just a bit of a backup, really, if you're playing against really heavy control. But basically, its ability is when it's boosted. See, that's the thing. This needs to be boosted for it to work. So by that point, you already have a lot of units on the board. But yeah, when this is boosted, you can search your deck for another copy of a rearguard, and then superior call it. So it's a +1. It's pretty nice. Counterblast, it's 1. Pretty cheap. You don't really use that much counterblast in this deck, actually. But it's a nice unit to just help you plus your field up. And then start of the deck, well, the second start of the deck, I feel. Maiden of Flower Screen. It's crazy expensive because it's a promo, and it's hard as... Oh man, it's so hard to get this card. But I'm really lucky. I managed to grab a few when it just first came out. So yeah, this ability is once per turn. You can choose a normal unit from your drop zone and then put it on the top of your deck, and then choose another of your units, and this card will be regarded as that unit. So basically, it copies another card name, and it's pretty good because basically you don't actually need a perfect field setup, because this can fix whatever you have for you. So you can have copies of names really easily, and then just pull off Aisha's effect, Jingle Flower. This synergizes. It's just a really good unit overall. And honestly, like the numbers, I know it seems like it's not amazing because it just hits for 9k itself. But if you think about it, like how much you're going to be pumping these columns anyways, it doesn't really matter. It's a really good card for consistency. It's honestly amazing. And then, of course, I'm going to run some vanilla, of course. 12k attackers. 12k attackers are good. With a good field setup, namely if you run Sour Slicers, you can make easily 31 columns with Aisha. It's a pretty good card. Yeah, 12k attackers. Nothing much to say. And then I'm going to run 4 copies of Valkyrie of Reclamation Pad Mini. Ironically, it's not a Maiden, but whatever. So it's pretty standard. You call on rearguard, you search your deck for, you reveal grade 3 in your hand, and then search your deck for a copy of Aisha, and add it to your hand, ditch one. And then you can also, this also lets you pitch this for stride. It's really good, very consistent. Some tricks you can do is, you can actually clone this, you can call this on rearguard, and then clone it, and then you can get another grade 3 into hand. It's pretty cool. It's also really shiny. I like shiny grade 1s. Pretty nice. Put that there. And then I'm going to run 3 copies of Maiden of Passion Flower, so that's the Unflipping Perfect Guard. So Unflipping Perfect Guard, for those of you that are unaware, when you place it on rear guard, when it's placed in guarding circle and then you have a copy of it in the drop zone, you can unflip 1 damage. So sometimes that's nice when you want to remain at low damage, but you still want to counterblast a lot. There's some cases where you want to do that, especially with on-crit vanguards, namely D-Police. Ironically, with D-Police, if they use Laurel, then it's quite a shame because you can't really guard with this. But overall, I still feel that Passion Flower is nice because it lets you play around at low damage, but still be able to use counterblast very, very. How do you say it? Carefree, yeah. Because I think the game a long time ago, like, you didn't really have to worry too much about counterblast, but no, you had to worry a lot about counterblast, but now you don't have to really. You could run Susanna, but I don't like Susanna. And then, of course, I'm going to run a 4th Sentinel, because I'm not that cheap. I'm going to run 100% Orange, just for the off chance you play the D-Police mashup, or you really want to protect Flower Screen, because you're going to go for Lethal next turn. I use that term a lot, Lethal. It's a term from Hearthstone. But then I run... This is also the second star of the deck, Sour Slicer. Sour Slicer is absolutely ridiculous. Doesn't seem that good on paper, but man, if you play this card, it gets really stupid. So during your turn, this unit gets plus 1,000 for each other unit named Sour Slicer. Did you know that with Flower Screen, you can copy this name and then it's just gonna start going like crazy? It's actually absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, Sour Slicer, it makes numbers. This goes to 9k. This goes to 12. 12, 9, 31. No, 12, 9, 21. And then you're going to pump 5s on it. It just gets really insane. Like, if you have free copies of this in the back row, then that's also a very nice setup. Oh man, drop the Sour Slicer. Yeah, Sour Slicer is also good, because you can sort of rush with him. If your opponent Grey Stocks himself, you can just play multiple copies of this, and then they're going to start hitting for, like, progressively higher numbers. Can hit up to 20. Can hit higher if you use Flower Screen. But yeah, if you use Flower Screen, then these guys can go up to 11k each, I think. Yeah, because you're going to have 4 other copies. But that's a pretty ideal setup, so. And then, trigger lineup, I'm going to run 2 copies of Maiden of Daybreak. Daybreak is a bit of a combo card, I guess you could say. You place it on rear guard, then you put it back on the top of your deck, choose 2 units with the same name, and then they both get plus 5,000, so pretty nice. It pumps your columns. It basically does the same thing as this, but if you get this in your hand, then you can recycle the stand. It's kind of nice. It's also really disgusting if you hit the stand trigger, like when your numbers are huge. And then I'm going to run 4 draws. Draws are actually, you actually need them in this deck, because if you go YOLO rushing, and then you're basically not going to have any sort of backup hand. So you actually need to survive, especially with how the game is right now. So the draw triggers are actually kind of important. They're also the second best defensive trigger to get. And then I'm going to run 6 criticals, because criticals combined with high numbers are pretty strong. Usually, it's very rare that I only run 4 criticals. I usually run 6 or more. So yeah, pressures for high damage. So criticals are always good. Clamor Girls kind of sucks, so I'll put these up here. And then 4 heal triggers. Self-explanatory. You want to heal. Yeah. So that's about it for the main deck. For the Stride deck, it's I feel it's pretty standard, but when Fighters Collection comes out, then it's going to change. So first of all, I run 2 of the Trial deck grade 4s. So Arborea, so when she hits, Clone 1 gets plus 2,000. So it's pretty standard ability. It's usually your first Stride, unless there's some situations where this is not your first Stride. But that's also very rare, so that's not going to happen. The camera to refocus a bit. So that's your first Stride. So usually this lets you pressure to gain more field, and then gaining more field is always good. And then you're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of the main boss card of this deck, honestly. This card is absolutely stupid. Sacred Tree Dragon, Jingle Flower Dragon. So this card, it's a bit confusing how it works, but basically what it does is that on Vanguard, you Persona unflip. If you have 2 or more face-up cards in the G zone, then one of your rear guards gains the ability that during your turn, for each card unit that has the same name as this, all your units get plus 2,000. Okay, no, it's really hard ability to explain. But basically, all your units get plus 2 intervals of plus 2,000 depending on how many copies you have. So let's just say I had 2 flower screens, and they both copy the name of 2 pad minis I have on the rearguard. So like my setup is kind of like this, and this. So what would happen is that I persona unflip. So these all have the same name. So 2 times 4 units with the same name is 8,000. So all my units get plus 8,000. Includes the Vanguard too. So it's really disgusting. Usually by the second Jingle Flower, your opponent's gonna die. But yeah, this is usually your second stride, and possibly third if they're not dead by then. Or if you don't have a field, then it's not that good. But even if you don't have a field, you can still plus 2 at least. Sometimes, usually it goes for at least plus 4 to plus 6, but it's possible to get plus 10,000 to everything if you have a perfect setup. So that's usually really disgusting if that actually goes off. So 4 copies of Jingle Flower. And then finally, I'm going to run 1 copy of Primavera. Primavera is counterblast free. Ditch 1, choose 5 normal units from your drop zone, put them at the top of your deck, and then you choose 2 rearguards, search your deck for up to 2 copies of each rearguard, and then Superior Call them. So with this, you can either build a field, or you can get 5 attacks off. Up to you, really. 5 attacks is pretty nasty to deal with. Usually, I feel like in this deck, it's a bit more useful to set up. In Musketeers, it's a bit more. It serves a bit as a finisher, or it sets up to a finishing turn with Jingle Flower. But it's really good at 1 because Counterblast 3 is really heavy in this deck because I don't run Susanna to unflip, Soul Blast 2 unflip 2. But it's a nice card to set up with sometimes. You barely use it, but because it needs 5 normal units in the drop zone, so that's actually really hard to get really early on, so it's almost never your reverse stride, unless you play Musketeers, really. And then finally, 1 copy of Snow Elemental Blizza. If for whatever reason your opponent is still alive after 2 Jingle Flowers, just kill them with Blizza, because there should be other perfect cards by now. So that's about it for this deck. How I feel it does, it's very strong, but I don't feel it's actually meta, just because how the meta works right now. It's a very fun deck, though. It'll also make your opponents frustrated out of their minds because they're trying to guard like 50,000 power side columns, and then they're just like, man, plants, vegetables, should have eaten my vegetables. But yeah, that's about this for this deck profile. Yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble on about how plants are basically pretty broken. And yeah, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.